A plane is flying through a terrible storm in the dead of night. A middle-aged woman sits with her 7-year-old daughter, Katya, who has just awakened from her nap. Katya's mother says they will arrive soon at their destination and tells her to go back to sleep. The plane is half empty with only some passengers on board. An older couple sits at the back of the plane, just a few rows behind where Katya and her mother sit. Everything is going well despite the storm and the flight attendants regularly perform their services. However, all of a sudden, the husband of the older couple passes out and causes panic. Katya is awakened by the wife's cry for help, but she finds her mother's seat empty. As she is calling out for her mother, a pre-recorded message announces that the plane will land soon in a city called Novosibirsk. She then hears an inaudible voice, turns around, and sees an old woman sitting behind her seat, continuously whispering some foreign-sounding words as if she is casting a spell. Realizing that Katya is watching her, the old woman opens her eyes, which are completely white with no pupils. Katya is frightened and looks away. The plane shakes more and more aggressively as both of its engines caught fire and it eventually crashes in a remote forest. Katya somehow survives the crash, albeit bloodied, and walks through the forest alone. In the midst of the silence, Katya's leg brace, used to treat her severe bone fractures, is squeaking. The tragic crash makes headlines all over the country, with Katya being the main highlight as she is the only passenger who survives. The cause of the crash remains unknown until 20 years later. Katya has come to terms with the trauma and has been actively sharing her experience with the public. Now an adult, she works as a psychologist and lives happily with her young daughter, Diana. She explains in an interview that it is now her job to help people overcome their fears. Instead of flying, she is scared of the sound of leg braces squeaking because it sometimes causes her to lose control of her emotions. The next night, Katya and Diana board a plane. They are traveling to visit Katya's father in Tomsk. Many flights have been cancelled that night due to a formidable snowstorm, and the one they board is the last one out. There are only a few other passengers on the flight. An elderly couple, Evgeny and Galina, Nikolai, an arrogant businessman, an eccentric young man named Pavel, and a friendly middle-aged man, Alexei, who sits on a row across Katya and Diana. There are also 2 flight attendants on duty, Inessa and Tatiana. Galina is a nervous flyer. Katya helps to calm her down and gives her some stress relief pills. However, a few moments later, Katya also feels mild anxiety, signifying that she has not completely overcome her fear. She runs to the lavatory to take a breather. When she is washing her face, Katya hears a knock at the door, thinking it was Inessa, but she hears her mother's voice instead. She opens the door and sees her childhood house. She can't find her mother anywhere in the house despite the voice. She opens another door in the house, but finds herself back on the plane. Alexei and Diana are chatting comfortably when Katya returns to her seat and the plane finally takes off against the cold winter wind. Katya and Diana go to sleep, so does the elderly couple and the 2 other passengers. Out of nowhere, a ray of red light comes through the cabin window, followed by several dozen bloodied hands. The passengers do not realize it since they are all asleep. Inessa and Tatiana are awake, but they just sit silently without making any response. In her sleep, Katya has a dream where her 7-year-old self and her mother were having dinner, 3 months after the crash. Her mother is annoyed by Katya's question as to why she is still alive. Katya then hears the sound of leg braces squeaking and sees her mother turns into the scary old woman she saw on the plane. When she wakes up, the bloodied hands and the red lights are gone, but the plane is caught up in a turbulence. Galina and Diana start to panic. Alexei calms Diana, telling her that the turbulence will be gone shortly. Things take a dramatic turn when Yevgeny, who is calm at first, shows a sign of lightheadedness and passes out. Galina calls for help. The flight attendants as well as the other passengers immediately go check on him. In the midst of the shaking plane, Katya and Alexei perform a CPR. The attempt seems to have succeeded as Evgeny's body starts to move. To everyone's surprise, his eyes turn completely white and he grabs Katya while whispering unknown words. Katya recognizes that he behaves exactly like the old woman. She believes he has been possessed and the old woman is trying to convey something. When the others are trying to save Evgeny, who suddenly has a seizure, Katya sees a black figure crawling out from one of the seats. Evgeny then falls unconscious once again. Inessa checks his pulse and declares him dead. Before Galina could lament over her husband's death, the plane begins shaking even more violently due to worsened weather conditions. The emergency oxygen mask automatically drops and everyone panicked. Tatiana goes to check on Diana, who is separated from the group, but gets thrown around and passes out. Hearing Diana scream, Katya has another flashback of the night when she was on the crashing plane. She sees a glimpse of someone else on the plane while the old woman keeps whispering the spell. She is transported back to reality a few moments later and runs to Diana as soon as the plane is stabilized, promising that she will not leave her daughter alone anymore. She asks Diana to draw something cheerful to help her calm down. Alexei also goes to help Tatiana. After a brief argument over the chaotic events, the group decides to place Evgenie's body in the rear seats. Katya tells Alexei that everything is her fault. She explains to him about how the old woman orchestrated the plane crash and leaves her as the sole survivor. The old woman is now coming back to her life to finish what she started, and something bad is going to happen. However, Alexei tries to think logically. He believes that the turbulence and Evgenie's death have their own valid reasoning. Katya is upset over Alexei's distrust, so she leaves him and visits Galina to express her condolences. She also offers Galina to sit with her and Diana, but she rather sits beside Alexei's body. Katya then returns to her seat. As she requested, her daughter shows her a drawing that she thinks is cheerful. In Diana's drawing, they are sitting specifically on row 19. Diana says that she likes to think that it is their seat even if it is not. During the earlier chaos, Katya notices Alexei's hands are shaking, so she asks him what causes it. He explains that he had been in an accident when working as a correspondent and he is the only survivor. She expresses her sympathy and reveals to him that she heard her mother's voice when the plane is about to take off, as if her mother is trying to warn her of something. Katya also notices that the scar caused by the bone fracture that she had since childhood, and until the morning before the flight, is gone. Alexei calms her down. He suddenly has a migraine, causing his hands to shake once again. Meanwhile, Nikolai initiates a conversation with Pavel, who is continuously drawing and babbling to himself. He says he wants to see his family after a busy week at work and shows a picture of his family, but Pavel seems uninterested. In the midst of Katya and Alexei's conversation, Diana is seen talking to someone behind their seats. She tells Katya that there was a girl talking to her. Katya panicked and immediately checks the seat, but only see a glimpse of the black figure. Then, there is an announcement saying that the plane will do an emergency landing in Novosibirsk due to the bad weather and a passenger's death. Katya realizes that bad things are about to begin, since the plane that crashed down was also bound to Novosibirsk. Diana suddenly cries, saying the mysterious girl keeps insisting that Katya will leave as soon as a man starts burning in flame. Katya wonders what the girl is referring to. A few moments later, due to his displeasure with the crew's decision to reroute, Nikolai takes a cigarette. Pavel and Katya warn him not to light it, but it was too late. It turns out that some inflammable liquid had been spilling out from the panel above his head, causing the fire from his lighter to combust and spread all over his body. Katya screams for help. She sees the old woman again, possessing Nikolai's burning body. Alexei then covers his body with a blanket and the flight attendants put out the fire with an extinguisher. Katya leaves to go check on Diana, but on her way, she sees the black figure moving around the plane. She looks out of the cabin window and has a flashback of the night before, when she and Diana were chatting in their house. Katya hears the sound of leg braces squeaking and sees a black shadow. Diana calls out for her, saying that she has broken her promise not to leave, but Katya passes out and transported back to the present time. Katya apologizes to Diana and tells her that she loves her no matter what happens. Alexei calls Katya to take a look at Nikolai, who is still alive though feeling in extreme pain. She advises to adjust his seating position to help him breathe. All the while, Pavel continues his drawing. Katya is furious and accuses him for not having any sympathy. While Alexei is calming her down, she notices Galina quietly goes into the lavatory. Nikolai suddenly mumbles something indistinctly. Pavel makes out what he says and shows a picture of his family before he finally passes away. Seeing this, Katya apologizes to Pavel. All the passengers get more distressed. Katya reveals to Alexei that her visions are getting more real. She starts to confuse them with reality. She knocks the lavatory door, worried something bad has happened to Galina because she has been in there for too long. Despite Inessa's interdiction, Tatiana forcefully opens the door. To their surprise, there is no one inside. Katya argues with Inessa. She is convinced that Katya is hallucinating and tells her to return to her seat while she and Tatiana check the cabin. It is then announced that the plane will soon descend to Novosibirsk. Evgenie's resurrected body tries to reach for Katya and the black figure's hands pin her down as she falls back to the row of seats behind her, which is none other than the row 19. She starts to have another vision, back to her childhood when she was in the crashing plane. Just like her earlier vision, she sees a glimpse of some other people on the plane. Katya wakes up a few moments later. She wonders if the unknown force, supposedly the old woman, is trying to keep her in that row and concludes that she needs to go to the cockpit door in order to find an exit. She grabs Diana, who refuses to go. When the rest of the group is arguing, Alexei's eyes start to bleed, followed by Tatiana vomiting clear fluids. Katya accuses Inessa of knowing something about all the strange occurrences, given her ignorance and suspicious behaviors. In the midst of the situation, she sees Pavel drawing and forcefully snatches his book. It turns out that he is drawing everything that has happened on the plane, even Katya's visions. The last of his drawing is of Katya walking to the cockpit door, just like what she has planned to do. Suddenly, Pavel turns into ashes and the plane goes through another turbulence. Katya and Diana run to the cockpit door in spite of Inessa and Alexei's assurance that there is nothing there. An unknown force then throws Inessa's body to the back of the plane, while blood comes pouring out of Alexei's head. At this point, Katya and Diana are the only ones alive. They succeed to open the cockpit door, unexpectedly find another cabin. Both of them continue to go to the door at the end of each cabin, hoping to find an exit, but it seems like they are stuck in a loop. The last cabin is relatively brighter than the previous ones. Katya walks slowly through the aisle and soon realizes that Diana is not with her. She calls out for Diana and sees her daughter sitting on one of the back rows, near the door at the end of the cabin. When she is about to approach her daughter, she sees the mysterious black figure. She furiously tells the figure to stay away from her daughter. Just as she starts to run to Diana, she hears a voice, which turns out to be sourced from the old woman, who reveals an appalling truth. She tells Katya that she is in fact a still 7-year-old girl sitting on the crashing plane and all the things she experienced are not real. Before killing Katya, the old woman provides her with a vision so she can see how her life would be if she survives the crash. But Katya is a special girl. Instead of staying asleep, she repeatedly tries to wake up. In short, everything she understood is in fact reversed. The childhood flashbacks that Katya had is the reality, while her adult life which she thought is the reality is only an imagination. Also, Diana is not her real daughter. The old woman can't keep her asleep anymore. She will wake up soon and her fate will be in her own hands. The adult Katya manages to reach Diana. She tells Katya that they both will meet at another time as long as she listens to what Diana had told her. Katya realizes that Diana has given her a clue for her to survive the crash, which is to sit on row 19. She is then transported to the reality as little Katya. Slowly but surely, the passengers in the plane pass out and die. Katya hurriedly goes to row 19. The plane then crashes into a lake, its wreckage scattered. However, the back part of the plane remains intact, including the seats in row 19. Katya succeeds to be the sole survivor of the tragic crash. Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like and comment to help the channel out. Thank you for watching and see you at the next recap.